What's happening? MC Marcus Chapman here, ready to break down show number 9 in the MC 25. The show is entitled Does MC Matter? AKA The Breakthrough, with Dr. Love and Ice Cube. Yeah, this is from June 20th, 1998 on WGCI 107.5 FM in Chicago. All right. So this is one of the most important and significant shows of my entire career. So I had no doubt it was going to be in the top 10. And here's the backstory. 1997, I started doing the after set in March of 97, which was Friday night going in Saturday morning, 3 to 6, my first weekly show. Prior to that, I had been on the air staff at GCI for about 9 months, but I didn't have a show. So getting the after set was a big deal because it gave me a chance to work on my skills every week. All right. And originally, a lot of times what I would do, I would go out to a party, meet some people, tell them to check me out after they left, and I'd be on the air. And sometimes people would do that. Sometimes people would actually call me and say that they had met me earlier that night, and that they were listening. And for the most part, I got good response. It was a good show. I wasn't really a good personality yet, but it was a good show. So that made me feel good. I was confident, and I just continued to work on my skills. By the time we got to 1998, as we got into spring, going into summer, a lot of the reaction I got from people in Chicago was not good at all. A lot of times, WGCI at that point was probably at its most popular overall for the whole staff. I think in the years earlier in the 90s and in the late 80s, most of the station's attention was focused around Doug Banks and Tom Joyner, the Turntable Brothers, and they used that to promote the station. And then, things kind of trickled down to everybody else, I guess, who was working there. But in the late 90s, the station started to promote more so the whole air staff, or at least the whole weekday staff. And so since they were focused on everybody a little bit more instead of just, one or two people, it helped the station as a whole, and it helped other people on the station become stars, even if they weren't on every day. So in the summer of 98, and in the spring of 98, I think a lot of people at WGCI were just really doing really well. They were hosting events, having a good time. And Chicago overall, the energy was just so high, especially by the time you got to June, because the Chicago Bulls won their sixth title. When Jordan hit the famous shot where he kept his arm up in the air and all that, that happened on June 14th. So this particular show, June 20th, 1998, was actually done less than a week after that, because that was on a Sunday night and this show was Saturday. But in 1998, that spring, like I said, everybody seemed to be having a great time and enjoying their stardom on the radio. And that was everybody except for me, because people, when they found out that somebody from the station was amongst their presence or whatever, they would be kind of excited. Okay, who here from GCI? Who? And then if they found out it was somebody who they didn't know, like they weren't familiar with the name, like MC Marcus Chapman, I wasn't really all that well known at that point. And a lot of times people would be disappointed, and sometimes that disappointment turned into dissing, like disrespect. Like people would say really disrespectful stuff to me sometimes. They'd be like, "Oh, I thought you was somebody. I ain't never heard of you before." Like kind of dismiss me. And I remember telling people sometimes, like, "Look, people don't start out as stars. You got to work your way up to that." And I knew that I was good and I was going to continue to get better, and that my name was going to be out there. But at the time, a lot of people just didn't see it that way. They would take out their frustration at the fact that they wasn't meeting somebody who was better known on the station, and they would say negative stuff to me. Matter of fact, I remember one time I went to a party. It was a club called Stardust, and years later they changed the name to Red No 5. I think it was like 440 North Halsted. And Dr. Love was throwing a party there because he was a party promoter. Jackpot Productions, they would have their Sunday night parties at different places. So they had a party at Red No 5 one night. And I remember going to it. And the previous year, the station had gotten us all these jackets. So I had on my GCI jacket, ready to go party. and typically we wouldn't have to pay to get in or nothing, it was cool. And they would not let me in. And it was crazy because I'm like, wait a minute, you throwing a party, you got a party thrown by somebody from the station. I work at the station with him. What's the issue? And I remember the girl at the door wasn't gonna let me in. Then some wannabe loud ass security dude came up there and started talking some stuff, and I ain't never heard of you do $20. And I was like, dog, I work with the dude throwing a party. I mean, you can go ask him if you want to. I can respect that. I can wait. It ain't like I'm trying to cause no problems, but dude was like, I ain't never heard of you, $20. So eventually I was like, F y'all. And I just left. And I remember sitting in my car thinking that it was really messed up because I wasn't mad because I didn't get into the party as much. I was mad because I knew if they knew who I was, that wouldn't have been no issue. And the reason they didn't know who I was is because I wasn't on the radio in prime time. I was only on weekend overnight, and everybody didn't listen to the radio Friday night going into Saturday morning from 3 to 6. That's just the reality of it. And that's why the average person who was listening didn't know me. So I spent most of that 1998 time just doing that one weekend overnight show. And every now and then I would fill in doing another one, but it wasn't too much of that going on. I was working at Dr. Wax Records, during the week mainly. That was my main job, even though the radio station was better known. And so I wasn't really getting the type of feedback or the type of love everybody else was getting in the streets because people hadn't heard me for the most part. But the people who did knew that I was getting really good. And so when I got the word that Sam Silk was taking off on this particular night and that I was going to be working with Dr. Love, it was really a chance for me to show people what I was capable of doing. I wanted to show the listeners, I wanted to show the management, I wanted everybody to know, don't think just because I'm coming on late that I'm whack, because I kick everybody's ass who you already know. If I ain't kicking their ass yet, I'm at least getting to that same level. So don't sleep. So I was really ticked off. And this show was an opportunity to go in there and show what I could do. And the thing is, I did my overnight show earlier that night. Okay, so it was Friday night going to Saturday morning. I did the after set, the 3 to 6. And right before I went in that night, I went to a party at this spot called Moretti's. And it was thrown by Club Net, which was a promotional group. Teddy Gilmore was the leader. You had Teddy Gilmore, Steve Leak, and a bunch of other cats. They threw some of the hottest parties ever in Chicago, especially in that era. So I went to Moretti's that night. The party was live. Dr. Love was there. Rick Party was there. Matter of fact, I just finished listening to the show, the after set that I did when I left that party, and I sounded good on there, and I was real confident, and I even said that I was feeling good because I was coming from that party. So that helped my momentum going into Saturday night. And Saturday afternoon, another great promotions group in Chicago at the time, Phil and Nate, they had a picnic at 63rd and Hayes, and that picnic was just ridiculous. Okay, it was hot. Women were gonna be out there. It was plenty of them out there. I met some out there that day, and I was also able to do the same thing I did normally with the after set in '97. I was able to tell people, hey, check me out on the air when y'all lead a picnic, And so for a change, people got the chance to hear me before they went out to a party. Because even though the picnic was during the day, cats were still going to be kicking it that night. And people were going to have a chance to hear me at the time when they got ready to go out instead of when they were leaving the party. It was when they were going to be getting ready to be on their way. So I felt really confident. I was really energetic. And on one hand, I was pissed off because people hadn't heard me and had been dissing me. But on the other hand, I was real inspired because I was coming from that live picnic and from that party the previous night. And I had some momentum because I had been on the air earlier that morning, Friday night going to Saturday morning. So when I went in that Saturday night 6 to 10, I was ready to kick ass, and I went in with that mentality. And the thing is, me and Dr. Love were cool. We had never worked together, but we were cool. And I always listened to that show, that Saturday night 6 to 10 show, when it was him and Sam Silk and Dr. Love. I listened to them all the time, so I knew how they show went. Matter of fact, that particular spot was my favorite spot on GC at that time because I went out a lot. I was in my early mid-20s, And even before Sam Silk and Dr. Love, it was Sam Silk and First Lady. Before that, it was Mike Love and the Dead. So I was always listening to that spot. So I had a chance to host that show for the first time. I had been on there once the previous year, guest starring for Dr. Love. And Sam, it was Sam Silk hosting, and then I was co-hosting. But I was really just adding stuff in here and there. But in this case, since Sam was the one who was gone, I was the lead, and Doc was the co-host, even though he was on there every week. So I went in there ready to roll, coming off all that energy from the picnic and everything else. And the first thing you hear is me playing a drop from R. Kelly, because the first song was "Be Careful" from Sparkle and R. Kelly. That was like the hot R&B record. Matter of fact, it ended up being the top song of the whole year for 1998 at the end of WGCI's year-end countdown. And so that started, and then right after that, I played the drop that Sam Silk and Dr. Love had from Maya, because we were going into her song with Cisco, It's All About Me. Then we went into their intro. Now, to be honest with you, I didn't care for their show intro. I loved their show, but their show intro to me, it didn't bring the same kind of fire that they brought to Saturday night. It was, kind of a play off the Rod Stewart, Do You Think I'm Sexy? Because it says, if you like Sam and Love and you think they sexy. I thought it was a little corny. So the singing was good. And those same people, that same girl who sang that, did something for another feature they did. I think a couple of them. And the other stuff sounded good. But the intro just, it was all right. It didn't really do it. But I came on, and if you listen to the show, you hear me come on, and right from the jump, I sound like I'm in command. I sound like I know what I'm doing. I know where we going. This is what's happening. Doc came in and added his parts, and we got the show rolling. And what's funny is most of these shows that I picked out have a turning point. There's a pivotal moment where something could have gone wrong, but it didn't. And on this show, it happens early in the show when we played Janet Jackson's song Go Deep. So I knew that song had like a 29-second intro, which was really long. That was a nice amount of time to be able to talk. So I knew I had a chance to do a good break on that song. And when we came up and talked over it, I stumbled over a word. And I could have easily totally messed up the break. But I recovered real quick. I came back, gave out the information, ended it in rhythm with the music. Boom. And it ended up being a good talk break. And I think the confidence that I was able to come back from a mistake and catch a mistake really quickly, I think that helped me for the rest of the show, because from that point on, we just rolled. I kind of compared it to, I'm a baseball historian, baseball and football a little bit of a historian, even though I'm more of a music historian. But my favorite sporting event of all time is baseball's All-Star game. And I have pretty much every All-Star game that was played from about 1971 through this past year. And in the 1979 All-Star game, there's a moment where Jim Rice of the Boston Red Sox hit the ball in the right field. He was in the American League. Dave Parker of Pittsburgh, he was in the National League. The ball came his way, and he lost the ball in the lights. He couldn't see it. And so Jim Rice saw this, and he was running. And instead of just trying to get a double, he tried to run the third and get a triple. Dave Parker recovered real quick, got the ball, gunned it. He had a gun of an arm. He gunned it to third base. Ron Sayre, the Dodgers, caught it. Boom, tagged Jim Rice out. He was out of there. And then later on, I think maybe a couple of innings later, Dave Parker had another throw to home. Gary Carter, Montreal, caught it and threw out Brian Downing of California. And Dave Parker ended up getting the MVP of that particular All-Star game for those two throws where he threw them cats out at third and home. And that's kind of what happened for the rest of this show. I had an MVP performance, Me and Doc kept it rolling. He even said a couple of times, if you listen to the show, he says at one point, I was trying to take his buddy's job, talking about Sam. And then at the end, he says, that I was a star on the show and all of this, because he knew that I was capable of doing more than what the station was giving me a chance to do. And it was proven to him. It's one thing to, believe you can do something. It's another thing to prove it. So I proved it that night. I proved that I was a good personality, as good as anybody else who was on the station. I proved that I could be on in prime time. and it was a great night for that. And as much of as much as I enjoyed the show, the highlight ended up being a surprise, which was Ice Cube calling in. Now, I was a major Ice Cube fan. He's one of my favorite artists of all time. My second favorite rapper behind LL Cool J. And right before, about a week or so before this show took place, when I was at Dr. Wax Records one day, I was reading this new magazine that came out called Double XL. It's C Murder was on the cover from No Limit. One of the stories was called "Does Ice Cube Still Matter?" because he hadn't had any major hits for a few years, but he had transitioned to the movie game with the Players Club, and he put out We Be Club, and that was like the biggest hit he'd had in about 4 years. And so he had said some stuff in the article about, changing up and understanding the audience and all of that. And I had read that earlier that week. And so the article was called "Does Ice Cube Still Matter?" And because everything I was going through with the station and in the city, my question was, does MC matter? So that's where the title of the show comes from. And talking to him on the phone that particular day, and was listening to his first tape, Ice Cube America's Most Wanted. That was the first cassette tape I ever bought in hip hop, and I was listening to that when I was on my way to work, when I was leaving from the picnic, and I even told him that it left off at "Rolling with the Lynch Mob." The next song was "Who's the Max," so he knew I was real. And we talked about the article in Double XL, and we talked about a bunch of stuff. And it was my first professional radio interview, so that was significant. And for it to be Ice Cube at that time on that day and that show was really significant. So that's why I was kind of going back and forth between which show was going to be number 10 and which show was number 9. Number 10 was But Can You Do It Every Day from August 1999, the show that proved I could be on every day, which was major. But I went with this one ahead of that because what ended up happening with this show is it proved that I could be on in prime time, but it was also a chance for me to be a part of what was going on in Chicago that night, because when I got off the air after having this triumphant show, where did I go? I went to the clubs. Club Liquid was the hot spot at that time. A cat named Simo Craig Morton, he was throwing that. The Bad Boys hosted and DJ'd every week. And I went there that night. I had gone there before, but this time I was going after getting off the air, so that was different. And Ice Cube came to the club that night, met him and everything. And then, I had a good time there. Then I went to the Click. The Click was the hottest straight up club, because like Liquid and a lot of other places, promoters would rent out and they would have these parties every now and then, maybe once a week at the most. But the Click was, in a full straight up club that people could go to several times a week. So Saturday nights was popping there as normal. I had been going there since '95, but this was the first time I had ever gone after being off the air instead of going to the party and then trying to get people to listen to me after the fact. So I went there feeling good, I got my little piece of radio stardom. Went from Club Liquid to the Click. The Click was jumping that night. I met this bad chick. I never will forget. She had on this black dress. She had like black curly hair, some killer legs. She had like the pretty complexion and everything. And I never will forget. Her name was Luana. What's up, Luana? And the funny thing is, like, I remember when I met her, and, she told me what her name was. I asked her, and then, she asked me what my name was, and I told her. And it wasn't a negative reaction. She was like, "Oh yeah, I was listening to you earlier tonight." So it was proof to me that if I was heard, people would have a a positive reaction towards me, and she did. And I only saw her like one other time, and nothing major happened between us. But just that night, just to have that kind of acceptance from a beautiful woman and being able to enjoy the night and be a part of this great summer that was going on in Chicago with all this great energy, it felt really good to be a part of that, especially after everything I had been going through earlier in the year with getting dissed and all of that. And that stuff ended up happening again after this, because it was just one night. But at least for this night, June 20th, 1998, I got to be a star and got a chance to see what it was like and feel what it was like a little bit to be a radio star. And even though that really wouldn't happen for real until later on in the year, or really in '99, this particular night was like the preview of that. And it was the night that I feel like I proved I was a good air personality. So from that point going forward, I was a good personality and I just kept getting better. That's why I call this show The Breakthrough, because it was my breakthrough from just thinking I could be a good air talent to actually becoming one and showing that I was a great air talent. So this show at number 9, Does MC Matter, aka The Breakthrough, with Ice Cube and Dr. Love, one of the most significant shows I ever did, one of my favorite shows. And I'm happy to share it, and it was number 9 in MC 25. And it was kind of a preview because me and Dr. Love ended up working together consistently starting in October 98, October 24th, even though I got passed up for it at first, which is a whole nother story, which I discussed in another video. But this was the preview of us working together at the end of 98 going into 99, and I just kept it rolling from there. But up next, number 8 is a show that's not really important in my career, but it was one of the most memorable and one of the funniest as well that happened a few years later. But for now, number 9, Does MC Matter, aka The Breakthrough, with Dr. Love and Ice Cube, one of the greatest nights of my life, one of the most memorable. June 20th, 1998, where I got to be a part of the great energy of Chicago from summer 98, instead of standing on the outside feeling like I was getting left out because of what time I came on. So this was the night I got to enjoy that a little bit, and here it is. Check it out, all right?